Bangladesh could do more to raise its profile internationally. I don't think it has a negative profile. I just don't think it has too much of a profile. There is this assumption that everybody around the world should do democracy how Britain does it. Well, I've got news for people who think that, our system isn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. To Tariq Rahman's credit, he was right to stand back from those irregular elections, fixed elections. Political elites who think they know what's best for the public, and that's become increasingly frustrating for the public. There are always crises and the Iran war and things coming at government. But I think it's in a really good place to move on from what's gone before in recent times. Trade isn't just about physical products anymore, is it? It's about internet connections, it's about cloud technology and all, artificial intelligence, etc.
So much moment of chaos. The stability is now what we are craving for. I think that's probably a generic feeling. Some probably are more articulate about it, some are not. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Reflections. This is Ashfaq Zaman, the founder of Dhaka Forum Initiative. We have a special guest with us today, Mr. Simon Danczuk, a former British MP from the Labour Party, currently with Reform UK. He's also a passionate author, as well as an international political advisor or analyst who's advising across continents. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us here today and giving us the time.
I'm pleased to be with you.
Thank you very much. So we sit in a very interesting time now with the war going on, across many other issues going on, triggered by the war or even without the war. At this point of the time, we also know that in many countries globally, we are seeing a trend where democracy is increasingly being tested. And at the same time, we see the whole definition of democracy, whole pillars of democracy being questioned as well. The new phenomena have already taken in place, like for example, digital democracy, the role of social media. There's always this debate between development versus democracy, which was also a debate very prevalent in Bangladesh for the last 17 years or so. At the same time, we are also seeing a rise of the authoritarian format of democracy, if I may say that, in different parts of the world. In that context, as a political analyst and advisor across continents, how do you see, what's your insight on democracy? Should it also reform? Should it also accommodate much more?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, my general view is that it will inevitably always evolve, not least because of technology, as you've just pointed out, but also because of the requirements for the people and the public in that country, and what the demands are and the requirements are, or what the vision is within that country. So I think it's always changing, and that's irrespective of whether they are thoroughly developed democracies or developing democracies, developing countries. And the other significant point I would make is that, and I think this happens far too much in the West, which is and certainly in Britain, there is this assumption that we know how to do democracy better than anybody else in the world, and that everybody around the world should do democracy how Britain does it. Well, I've got news for people who think that, our system isn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. We're just finally, for example, one of the few things I do agree with Keir Starmer about is getting rid of the hereditary peers in the House of Lords. So we have two chambers. One is the House of Lords, and we've had hereditary peers, people who are there by the fact of birth. Now, I don't agree with that, and we're finally getting rid of it. And I would say that's not good democracy to have had them there for a long time. But similarly, people in Britain and elsewhere criticise African states in terms of how they organise their democracy. It's not for us to tell African states what's going to work for them.
Great. I mean, it's an interesting thing that you brought, that the whole founders of democracy, or the promoters of democracy, let it be UK or maybe United States, where they have gone into different parts of the world preaching democracy or trying to establish democracy. I think even in those countries, democracy is being questioned whether there needs some sort of reform in different formats of it. So that also leads me to, we talked about the global perspective, but let's talk about the local perspective. As I mentioned that over here in Bangladesh, we were given this notion that development is probably more important than democracy during the rule of Awami League in particular. You know that we have a new government over here now, the BNP. Ironically, you have also known the current Prime Minister Tariq Rahman from his days in the UK. When he came back to Bangladesh, In his first speech, he mentioned that he has a plan. So many people assume that all these years in exile in the UK, probably this plan was being manifested. This plan was on the making. And probably now we can see the execution slowly. So you mentioned about democracy. When it comes to democracy, the type of leadership is also very important. So you have known Tariq Rahman. You probably have an insight on his type of leadership. How do you think in this interesting time of Bangladesh, he fits in to sort of like save democracy once again?
Yes. Well, I mean, to give some credit to Yunus, the interim leader in between the Awami League and the Bangladesh National Party, one thing that he has done is deliver some fresh democratic elections, and he should be given credit for having done that, because I think it's at least the last two elections prior to that, they haven't been free and fair elections under Sheikh Hasina. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And just to give you some perspective, I mean, when I was in Parliament and these irregular elections were going on in Bangladesh, it was often said by British politicians, oh, well, and they would say it to BNP leaders, you should take part in the elections anyway. Mm-hmm. Well, even if they're going to be rigged, you should still take part. And I have to say, to Tariq Rahman's credit, he said, hang on, we're not going to take part, we're going to stay away. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the right decision. But this was, again, British politicians trying to impose their view on how democracy should be done. The right thing is to take part. Well, it wasn't. It was right to stand back from those irregular elections, fixed elections. I think that was the right call. So we moved to where we are now. We've had these fresh elections, a fair democratic process, lots of participation. Excellent news. Where do we go from here? I actually think Mr. Rahman, knowing him as I do, is a man for this time. I genuinely believe that, and I say it objectively. In the past, we have had these, and I say it with all politeness, these battling Begums, as they've been described by journalists throughout the world. These two strong women, God bless Madam Khaleda, but these two strong women battling at each other, and they had to be strong because they were brought up in a very male chauvinist style of politics. But we have moved on from that, I do believe, in Bangladesh and elsewhere. And that's why I say that Mr. Rahman is a person for this time, in that he's much calmer, much more thoughtful, much more considered, I think more conciliatory. And so with the uprising that we saw, the student uprising, the protests on the streets of Bangladesh, quite understandably, and should be celebrated in my view, we're now in a position where I think the country obviously needs to rebuild itself, and I think including democracy. And I think Mr. Rahman helps the country get to where it needs to be, move on from what's gone before to having some success. And I think he will provide the vision and direction and leadership that the country wants. I do believe that.
During your time in the UK that you met with him, did you have any conversation that probably sort of shaped his views as well, or maybe an insight of his views on how he sees this transition, or, the first few things on how he wants to reestablish democracy over here? Because what we hear from different people that is quite inspired by the Westminster format of democracy, particularly living in the UK, seeing the Parliament in the UK as well.
Yeah, I think he's had a time to reflect whilst he's been in the UK. I mean, absolutely no doubt that he would have much rather have been in Bangladesh. But I think that, he's spent a lot of time maturing as a person, I guess, as well, and reaching various conclusions. I can't speak for him, quite obviously, but I do think that he will want to see democracy in action. He'll want to see participation. He has a genuine interest in learning and listening. But I also think he wants to provide some direction. So he set out this 31-point plan quite some time ago. More recently, there's been the manifesto. And that's so that people know what they're voting for, isn't it? So I think he comes to this with a mature mind, with much experience from the UK and from elsewhere that is learnt from. Perhaps it's for opposition parties in Bangladesh to learn more about how democracy could be improved and what role they could play, because it's incumbent on the opposition as well. Same in Britain. We need an opposition, Kemi Badenoch, leader of the Conservatives, whoever it might be, to play an effective role in challenging the current Labour government. And similarly, in Bangladesh, we need a smart, sophisticated opposition, and I would ask the question, do we have that yet? Is there more that the opposition parties can do to develop and challenge in a helpful and constructive way, so that we get better governance and better democracy?
Interesting perspective. When it comes to democracy or governance, we often only try to focus on the government itself, but we often forget that actually when it comes to democracy, the opposition is probably equally important when it comes to their role in how they are shaping the different pillars and values within the democracy. My next question to you is that you're one of the unique peer personalities who have taken a deep interest in Bangladesh politics or Bangladesh governance. We are the 8th biggest country in terms of population in the whole world, but we probably are not portrayed in the global media, in global positioning. Our narrative as a country is not that strong when it comes to the international arena. And do you think that the Bangladeshi diaspora has a role to play on that? It's not only Tariq Rahman, you've also met with the Bangladeshi diaspora when we were contesting your own election and as part of the MP. So what do you think the Bangladeshi diaspora can play a role, and overall, what Bangladesh should do to project Bangladesh as a country to the globe?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and I hadn't considered it until you asked me the question, but Bangladesh could do more to raise its profile internationally, couldn't it? I don't think it has a negative profile. I just don't think it has too much of a profile. On the very positive, its people are passionate about Bangladesh. So the best ambassadors for Bangladesh, as well as the politicians and diplomats and everybody else, are the people itself. Not least because they obviously often migrate to other countries, whether it's Britain, Canada, the Middle East, wherever else. So they can certainly be ambassadors for the country and talk it up and promote it in various ways. But also, I mean, you do need a government, if that's a priority for you, to raise its profile positively. And I think that can be advantageous in terms of trade and investment. So there is some logic to wanting to do that. But then government needs to take a role. And it isn't all just about marketing, though that is crucial. And I give you the example of Rwanda, where I have some interest. This tiny East African country, but it punches its weight well above its size. And there's a couple of reasons for this. One is marketing. So Visit Rwanda is on a number of football T-shirts in the Premier League and in the United States. I don't do football, so don't test me on it, but that is for sure. And so people know it from that. Secondly, they've been helping in terms of immigration policy in different countries, bringing refugees from Egypt for the United Nations, doing a lot of United Nations, as Bangladesh does actually, defence work for the United Nations. But what they've also done, and I only learnt this recently from an advisor to Boris Johnson when he was Prime Minister. He said, if you ever go to an international conference, Rwanda are there. So their performance at an international conference, everybody attends their events. And so for such a little country, they invest quite a lot in having a presence at these occasions.
They're organizing those as well. A lot of the conferences are happening in Kigali, by the way, as well.
Absolutely. The second time I ever visited Kigali was CHOGM, the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. And it was a spectacular event. Prince Charles was there on behalf of the Queen. Boris Johnson was Prime Minister, and the whole Commonwealth was there. And it's a showcase, isn't it? So Bangladesh could do more of that type of thing if it wanted to start punching its weight internationally.
Just a candid question, like, what do you think is the perspective amongst British politicians when it comes to the Bangladesh community, the diaspora of the Bangladesh community?
Oh gosh, that's an interesting question. I think politicians are quite sophisticated and know the community well. I think the wider British public have got the wrong perspective in terms of Bangladeshi people mixed up with Pakistanis and Indians, and I'm sure you've heard some of it yourself. So the public are all over the show in terms of the Bangladesh community. Some will know it, not least from the hospitality industry in the United Kingdom. But I think, and not surprisingly, some British politicians will take a keen interest in Bangladesh, or a reasonable interest. Some won't take any at all. But to be honest, they have been in the media because of Sheikh Hasina's regime, and because there are Bangladeshi origin MPs in the United Kingdom, not least Tulip Siddiq, but Rupa Hook and Rushnara Ali as well. So they are known of, and so there is a profile around Bangladesh amongst the British politicos.
Great. Interesting that you also mentioned about Tulip Siddiq, and there's a lot of it was a hot topic in the UK media as well. In fact, I was in an interview with LBC as well as the Times UK. I've been questioned. There was probably a debate, because she is a British Parliament member, whether the due diligence was done in the local court, and there's other debates as well. So would love to know your insights and your side of the story. How do you think this unfolded in the UK?
I think it's a very interesting story from a British political perspective, not least because Tulip Siddiq is exceptionally close to Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, and that's well documented. They're said to go on holiday as families together. They're in neighbouring constituencies. It's suggested that Tulip helped Keir Starmer get selected for the seat that he now represents in Parliament. So they're exceptionally close. They win power in May 2024 general election, and one of the first things Keir Starmer does is appoint Tulip Siddiq to be Minister for Anti-Corruption.
That's the irony, right? And she has been charged for corruption later on.
Well, she's been found guilty for corruption twice, which is doubly bad. And that's where the scandal lies, isn't it? And whether she asked to be Minister for Anti-Corruption is something we will eventually find out, I'm sure, in the passage of time. But it's a major concern, and it remains so. And that's not just amongst opposition politicians. There are people within the Labour Party, because what happens in Britain, I don't know about Bangladesh, I'd be interested to know, but politicians speak informally amongst different parties. And I speak to Labour politicians who have concerns about Tulip Siddiq. They can't understand why she was promoted in the way that she was. They have concerns about her wealth. People talk openly about the fact that she has so much property, how she managed to accrue so much property, and then, not surprisingly, they talk about her links, close family links with Sheikh Hasina, and reach a conclusion. And that conclusion is that some irregularities have gone on, to say the least. Now, whether we ever get to the stage where she is extradited from the UK to face prosecution in Bangladesh, I don't know. But at some stage, government is going to change in Britain, and the temperature might get increasingly hot for her.
You've been a veteran, a politician as well, so you have seen political landscape being changed from different generation as well. When we were mentioning about Tulip Siddiq, I think the issue of political trust also comes in, right? So, members within their own party, if they're also having doubts, that is a classic issue of political trust. More importantly, what the people feel, the political trust. In the context of Bangladesh, we can also see there's an erosion of political trust as well. I think people over here, they have a generic feeling that all politicians, they are probably somewhat more prone towards corruption. So there's not a very good feeling. The political trust index, I will not say that we are probably in the best of scenario. So what do you think in this context, and you have a lot of expertise in this, can be done to actually fix this issue of political trust?
Yeah, I think identifying why political trust has broken down in the way that it has is the first thing. And I think that's due to a number of factors. I think and it doesn't just apply to Bangladesh, I think it applies to many other countries. I think the general public have got disheartened, is a polite way of putting it, have got aggravated by the fact that we have had political elites, whether it's in Bangladesh and Sheikh Hasina, or whether it's in Britain and the Uni Party, Conservative, Labour Conservative, who know what's best. Political elites who think they know what's best for the public. And that's become increasingly frustrating for the public, because they often don't know what's best. So, for example, if you take Britain, well, immigration's good for for Britain, so you're going to have more immigration. And that's increasingly aggravated the British public. It might be different issues in Bangladesh or in America or wherever else. So people have got very disillusioned by these political elites that have existed, and popularism has arisen as well as a consequence of that. Social media is another factor, I think. The mainstream media has failed to keep up. People are gathering their information from elsewhere. And that's diluted. There's many different opinions and views from very many different kinds of people. So people don't conform to mainstream media messages in the way that they did, which I think is a healthy thing, actually, but it's made more disillusionment. I think COVID perhaps and the lockdown had an impact on many people, in that they were told that this was the only solution. You had to be locked down very fiercely. Children had to wear masks. You couldn't go to school. In some countries, it was too much.
Right.
And I think that, they felt like they were so fed a lie by politicians that we could have had a softer lockdown. So they've lived through that. And I think that was a significant factor as well. So you have a combination of issues that have led to disillusionment with politics. What's the solution? Well, a different kind of politics, I guess. And in Britain, it might be sort of centre-right, popularist solutions to what's required. I think that's where a majority of the people are in terms of coming up with something. In Bangladesh, it might be Mr. Rahman's solutions, a calmer, more constructive, conciliatory, planned leadership, more inclusive politics, and that's an antidote to what's gone before from Sheikh Hasina. So I think it's different solutions in different countries in terms of tackling the disillusionment, but it's definitely there, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the general perspective over here is also that we went through so much moment of chaos. The stability is now what we are craving for. I think that's probably a generic feeling. Some probably are more articulate about it, some are not. So yeah, that's a very interesting perspective that you linked it with even COVID, that some sort of this mistrust has probably also shaped during the times of COVID. And a lot of research is probably required to see how human perception has also changed during the lockdowns, and even some say after the vaccination,
Yes.
then there might be some psychological changes that's taking place in the way people interact and think. My next question to you is regarding global politics. You know that Bangladesh is located in a very interesting place. We are surrounded by India across all our borders. We are also very, very close to China, who's our infrastructure partner, our development partner. And at the same time, our biggest trade is with the West, particularly with the United States, as well as with the European Union, as well as in the UK. So we have got trade in one side, we've got the geography, the matters of the politics of geography, our neighboring countries at one side. So what do you suggest should be the Bangladesh strategy for ensuring that they both have the sovereignty as well as the balancing act of this global strategy as well in terms of foreign policy?
Yeah, this is very interesting. I think my general view would be, my advice would be, and it's a classic British phrase. And I'm curious to know whether it's a commonly known phrase in Bangladesh. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Yeah, and so that's what I think the solution is. And I think that's what we'd previously been doing in Britain. We were in the European Union, and I don't think that served us particularly well. And there are other countries that you can learn from in this regard. So I think yes, you have a constructive relationship with India, but you are not as close to India as what Sheikh Hasina's regime was. That was an unhealthy relationship in my view. But you're still your neighbours. I mean, you're heavily reliant on each other, so you still have a relationship. You do some trade there. You nearly 80% of trade with America, exceptionally high. Perhaps you need to diversify and have some of that kind of trade with other countries as well, because you might have somebody like Donald Trump come along and push heavy tariffs onto you. So that's another reason to be doing trade with other countries. The Commonwealth is there, isn't it? Could that be exploited more in terms of trade and, and trade deals being done? So I think that's the broad, that's the strategy I would advise to a country like Bangladesh. Get out there and do more trade. There's regional deals that can be done with neighbouring countries and things, aren't there? I was talking with the foreign minister and the prime minister's technology advisor earlier in the week, and about undersea cables, for the internet and all the rest of it. And we're discussing the idea of a connection between Bangladesh and Singapore, and that's a significant hub. So and that's what trade isn't just about physical products anymore, is it? It's about internet connections. It's about the cloud technology and all the rest of it, artificial intelligence, etc. I think linking with many different countries is important.
So when it comes to UK and Bangladesh, what are the things you feel that we talked about Singapore, you talked about India, so in particular with the UK, what do you think could be the main areas of focus when it comes to leveraging this relationship as a Commonwealth country as well?
Yeah, I think a lot more could be done actually, and I think the situation we're currently in is disappointing, really, not least because of Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister. You'll recall that Mohammed Yunus, the interim leader, came to Britain when he was leading Bangladesh, and he met King Charles, but the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, refused to meet him, which was a significant factor because Starmer was in Downing Street, he was in Britain at the time, but he wouldn't meet Yunus, and that was undoubtedly a significant snub. And I have it on good authority that was because Yunus had played a part in the charges against Tulip Siddiq, Starmer's friend, and I've heard that on good authority. And I just don't think that's the way to do diplomacy. This is Starmer getting it wrong. It's not the way to do diplomacy. It's not the way to do trade. It's not the way to play a significant role within the Commonwealth, and not the way to treat a Commonwealth partner. So that's very disappointing. It doesn't put us in a great position. That said, relations go on. Let me give you another example. This week, Britain sent its trade envoy to Bangladesh, Baroness Rosie Winterton, a former Labour MP, and she met with the British High Commission, and she met with the Prime Minister's Foreign Affairs Advisor, Humayun Kabir, and presumably then did one or two other things, then left. Now, I know Rosie Winterton, and I certainly know the all-party parliamentary group on Bangladesh, and I know Bangladesh. And in all the time I've been in British politics, Rosie Winterton, as far as I know, has shown no interest in Bangladesh. So this idea that Starmer has appointed her to be the trade envoy from Britain to Bangladesh is just about patronage. It's just giving her a role for the sake of giving her a role. And she's come out here, not really met anybody, perhaps not taken too seriously. What does that achieve? So when we talk about Britain and Bangladesh leveraging the relationship, I really think Starmer's been getting it wrong in that regard. And then the other problem for the relationship is that Starmer looks more to the European Union than he does to the Commonwealth or anywhere else in the world, and he's had an obsession with Britain being closer to the European Union, or even being back in the European Union than he has anywhere else, and that makes it difficult for Britain to have so it's nothing to do with Bangladesh, it's to do with Britain, and as having a prime minister that just isn't looking more broadly and more internationally and getting representative trade envoys. If you're going to have one, then have one that has an interest in the country and has the relationships in that country that can leverage a good relationship that satisfies both parties. So I think we're at a low in terms of the relationship between the two countries. That won't last forever because Keir Starmer's struggling to remain Prime Minister. So after he's gone, perhaps things will change.
I think we also have our part to play as well when it comes to how we can actually, sort of showcase our value proposition to UK as well as other places as well. And I think that's where personalities like you can play a significant role in trying to, because Bangladesh in and out, who can promote Bangladesh. That brings us to my last question of this episode, is that this is your 4th visit to Bangladesh from what I have known. And how do you find Bangladesh? What's the change that you see? Maybe this is after a few years that you are coming. What's your final words on how you're enjoying Bangladesh? What's the difference you are seeing?
Yeah, it's 10 years since I was last in Dhaka, and I've just in the last week popped down to Sylhet as well as being in Dhaka, and so it's nice to be back in both places. It's much more developed than it was 10 years ago. That's a little bit of a surprise to me, a positive surprise. Gulshan district is a fun place to be staying around. Everybody's so friendly. I mean, people don't realise that. And everybody's so hard-working. It just reminds me of this fact. People have a very strong work ethic, which is a real positive and something that I think is important more generally. So I'm pleased to be back here. I'm certainly enjoying the food, as always. It's one of the main attractions for me. But the friendliness and the conversations, I think it's got so much going for itself. I think it's in a great place. Obviously, there's changes to be made, the priorities. There are always crises and the Iran war and things coming at government. But I think it's in a really good place to move on from what's gone before in recent times. And I'm excited to have played a small part in that, actually. I'm proud of that fact.
We are privileged, we are honored, and we are very glad that you are playing the role of an ambassador for Bangladesh in your area and elsewhere as well. And we wish you all the best and hope that you have a lovely stay in Bangladesh.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.